Hello, welcome everybody to our fifth episode of Rise Up Fool. I'm very excited today to have Ron Herrera with us. Um, Ron, the way we always start these conversations is by asking folks how they identify, whether that be Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano, Puerto Rican. So, Ron, how do you identify?
I'm a product of the, Chicano moratorium, Arturo. So I identify primarily as a Chicano, but uh, also Latino, and depending on the song, if it's Los Lobos, Mexican American.
Right on, man. I love it. And then Ron, I wanted to introduce you, but I also, you have so many hats that you wear and so many titles that I just like, I don't know where to even begin. So I don't know if you could just sort of give us a small introduction of like, who is Ron Herrera in the labor movement?
A worker.
Worker.
Yeah, a truck driver who read a lot and was activated, in the late 60s, early 70s, uh, by, a lot of brave Latinos, Ruben Salazar being one of them. During, he was murdered by Los Angeles County sheriffs uh, during the day of the moratorium. And obviously Cesar Chavez, because of his mobilization skills. Uh, but I'm a worker. I want to be always identified as a rank and file Teamster, because I think that no matter what position I hold, no matter what position I run for, I believe in humility and respect of workers, and I don't want to ever lose the fact that I ate in a lunchroom, many years ago, with my coworkers at UPS and other places that I worked as a laborer. So I identify myself as a rank and file Teamster that has worked hard to get into leadership.
Right on, man. I respect that. And so you're running for the general secretary treasurer, right, of the international. So I want to ask you, Ron, like, why are you running? Why is it important for you to run?
For you, for your generation, uh, for the youth, not only of race, right, blood, but also of gender. It's important that we don't forget about our sisters. But I want to be the one. Obviously, people call me a trailblazer. I don't know if I fit that bill or not. Uh, but I look at it like I'm the one that has to stick his foot in the door and not let it close for the next generation of union leaders, not just in the Teamsters, but in all sectors of organized labor. And I have to, show courage and encouragement to a generation that can really do good things for, in this case, right, the Latino people. It's important that we recognize that we may be workers, but we're also leaders, and the next generation of rank and file members need to understand that they can be leaders in the labor movement and in their unions.
So I mean, that just that image of you sort of holding the door open for the next generation kind of leads me to the next question. Um, if if you win, right, and if you get this job, you're the next secretary treasurer. um you would also be the first Latino to fill that role within the Teamsters, right? Is there an extra pressure or an extra responsibility that you feel because of that?
Every day of my life, if I succumb to it, pressure would overtake me. But I'm a very calculated person and very strategic, and I know how to get to a solution of a problem taking a direct route. Sometimes you got to slow down, right, and not rush. But the pressure of having the number two position, if you're strategically planned, if I can continue my belief in empowerment of our youth, and to continue to be outspoken and not be censored on on minority issues, on Latino issues, then I think that my commitment and belief and my passion will overtake any pressures that may come with the job. Look, I'm not naive to think that there's going to be critics because America may not be ready for outspoken Latino labor leader in the most powerful union that there is in the country. But they better get used to it, and they better get used to the people that are coming behind me. Not so much me, but the herd of leaders, of Latino leaders and Latina leaders that are coming behind me. But this is, Arturo, I'm not gonna, you know, mince words about what my goals are. And my goals are to open up the door, and like I said earlier, not to be repetitive, but to open up the door for younger Latino leaders and Latinas, especially, to get into positions of leadership within, the labor movement.
You know, as great as it is for myself as a Latino who has been involved in the labor movement and considers myself um, radical and on the left. Um, as great as it is to hear that, I think that there are some of us who believe that there's something about Washington D.C. that when folks go there, whether it's in Congress, in the Senate, or in this case in the job, uh, as the number two position as in the Teamsters. There's something about going to Washington D.C. that um, can change people, right? There's something I don't know what it is, right? But there's sometimes where I think that there's a lot of us who believe that the job could change people. I don't know. Do you believe that that's the case? If so, do you think it would change you for the better? Would it change you for the? Is there a risk for it changing you for the worse? Like, what do you think about that?
Mira, has oído esto, right? They can take the boy out of the barrio, but they can't take the barrio out of the boy. Well,
Yeah.
I knew where I grew up at, bro, and they're not gonna take that out of me. And if I'm rooted and goal oriented, Washington D.C. isn't going to do anything except give me a platform to speak out for Latinos and speak out on immigration reform, speak out on ethnicity, speak out on affirmative action, speak out on equity, right? But what is equity when we're trying to? We can't even create equality within, jobs for Latinos. So I personally, if temptation hasn't, taken over now, me, with the positions that I have now, being the first Latino General Secretary Treasurer of the Teamsters will not change me. It'll empower me even more. And I hope that, young activists of all colors can, look up to a position that is in their sights, and realize that it's attainable, looking at what folk, not just me, right, but people like me have been able to accomplish. But what is the accomplishment if you don't give it back to the people? You haven't accomplished anything except being self-centered. And this job is a job of the people, and it has to be viewed that way. And you can never, sway to the left or right. You got to stay directed and know your original purpose has to continue on.
You know, I love the answer of just sort of remembering uh they where you come from, kind of not that they can't take the barrio out of you. So I want to know a little bit about what is your barrio? Where did you come from?
I was I was brought up in I won't call it a suburb because it's really not that. But I grew up, outside of LA County, right? In a town called Wilmington. Very community oriented when I grew up. Um, Generational of kids that came up. If your older brother or older sister hung out with the Gutierrezes or the Ponces, chances are that there was a Ponce or Gutierrez that was your age. So there was a lot of community foundation where I grew up, and it was luckily, for me, my family, my dad was a union member. He was a longshoreman, and we did well, because of my father. But the neighborhood that I grew up in uh, was working class, predominantly Latino. Now it's pretty much 100% Latino, but we had a whole array of ethnicity that we nationalities that we grew up with. So it was a well-rounded working class area in Wilmington, uh, and I still have friends that are from there. It's interesting. I mean, let me tell you a little funny story. So there was a neighborhood market there called Sal's Market, and the Sal's daughter, right, the original owner, reopened it
Mm.
and still operates in it. And I follow it on Facebook because they have these cool T-shirts that say Sal's Market. That's my upbringing.
Yeah.
My mama used to send me over there for bread and tortillas and milk, right? And that's where we emergency shopped. Anyway, I, one of my nieces bought me a shirt from the place. So I still sport, Sal's Market Wilmington,
Yeah.
today. I had it on last week. So a lot of pride in community, lot of loyalty in community. People ask me all the time, how did you learn to be, a Teamster leader? I said, I grew up in Wilmington. Well, what is that? How does that help you? I go, because, number one, you're prideful of, and you can understand this because where you grew up, right? You're prideful of where you grew up with. You're loyal to, your community, and they teach you respect. And I just, defined the foundation of being a Teamster because you need those three elements to respect and your membership as a Teamster leader. So I give a lot of credit to and thank my mom and dad for raising me in a community that was very broad and open, and it taught me a lot of things in life, and I use them today in my career as a Teamster leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so much of just even from our culture, right? It's like it's our roots, it's our community, it's our family, our antepasados. It's where you come from, right? And like we carry that. We always carry that. It's um. But let me move a little bit to the big news that came out of the Teamsters this summer was a national campaign to organize Amazon. And I want to ask you why organizing Amazon is a priority for the Teamsters.
Amazon has the ability to uh, destroy transportation as we know it, and delivery system. They haven't yet encroached on the uh, customers of UPS, but they're going in that direction. One of the things that has happened though, there's uh, a staffing pool, and both UPS and Amazon recruit from that same pool. So it depends on who is short staffed at the time, and they'll create an influx of young workers, and I'm talking workers as young as 18 years old that go into these warehouses. So that's number one, because there's going to be a competing employee competition. Secondly, obviously, volume is going to be taken from our union shop into a non-union shop. One of the things they've done is even myself. You see an Amazon truck go by. There's a young driver in there, delivery driver in there. He's wearing an Amazon uniform, driving an Amazon truck. Logic tells you that he's a Amazon employee, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. What they do is they hire third party delivery agencies, supply them with trucks and uniforms for drivers that the agency hires, or the delivery company, and then they send those drivers with their uniforms and trucks into fulfillment centers of Amazon, and then they pick up their product to be delivered. Once they deliver it, they head back to their, parking lot where their company's at, and park their car, and drive their car home. Logistically, with the the national logistics, where they're moving product in semi tractor trailers, it's all misclassified drivers. It's all independent contractors, and it's app based. So they're not even using employees of any company that I know of. It's
Mm.
pretty much all app-based pinging of a driver, much like Uber and Lyft,
Yeah.
that you may use, to get from point A to point B. Well, they do the same thing in trucking. So the fact that they're using a third party and not their own employees, we would have to, organize the delivery companies. But I'm sure if we did organize the delivery drivers, that Amazon would probably, you know, uh, not use them anymore. And then,
Right.
the fact that they're using independent contractors, there is no real opportunity to organize them into organized labor, the drivers being union. So all the work that the Teamsters are doing in the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles right now, trying to impact the misclassification of drivers, is very, very important for the Teamsters. So you have a giant like Amazon utilizing everything that the Teamsters are against. It could actually impact our biggest employer, which is United Parcel Service. So it's very, very important that it's a strategic plan that involves all the unions, right, all the labor movement, um, to attack this beast, because that's what it's going to take. I had it described to me this way, and I think it's the best analogy that I've heard, and that was that organizing Amazon is like taking one bite out of a whale, a bite at a time.
Amazon aside, if we look at like the last what, like 40 years of the labor movement, um there's, I mean, I come from California where the labor movement's like thriving in California, right? But like elsewhere, we know that we've seen a loss of manufacturing in the U.S. We've seen globalization rise. Um, we've seen deregulation, right, from like Reagan on. Um, it's there's several challenges in the labor movement, right? And so, given all that, like for you, what's the future of the labor movement in the U.S.?
Um, well, I come from California, so I look to it through that lens. Uh, but I think that I've been in this campaign. I'm here in Arizona, right to work. I was in San Antonio and Austin 3 weeks ago, and right to work. I've been in Southern California, right? Campaigning. I've been in Northern California campaigning. I've been in Chicago even campaigning. And there's one common thread of that is encouraging, and that's that the workers that I'm talking to are minority workers,
Mm,
and the bulk of them, not all of them. But it's encouraging because for the labor movement's sake, we have to create a movement. And people may think that, I'm being naive because, that's a thing of the past. But I think that there's a energy and a fire in your generation that can be ignited. And the younger generation can definitely charge the labor movement into not only mobilizing, but growing again, because there's definitely a need. Los Angeles is touted, as a union city, but yet some of the lowest wages exist in Los Angeles too, and that's because of you know um, the minorities that hold these jobs. And I think that there's a some of the old sayings, and you're familiar with them, like "ya basta."
yeah.
Well, that has to surface again. But the leadership has to, you know, be respectful and responsible to the workers and its membership. So things got to change at the top too. People in leadership and have to be committed to workers, because workers, and this, having a little background, where you came from, workers have to believe in you.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to sell them a bill of goods, and if you're going to tell them what they want to hear and not be able to deliver it, then that's going to be a detriment to the progressive transition that I would like to see happen. But I think that if we can all work together, there's definitely a possibility that we can create a platform and a message that's resonates with a lot of workers, and hopefully we can get some victories to tout and make some changes. But I think, as a Latino labor leader, I think that I refuse, Arturo, I refuse to say that we can't do it.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to think that that I can influence workers to join a union and to stand up for themselves. The big thing about joining a union is that you have a voice, and that you can push back. And I think that I love the fact that the show is called uses the word rebels, because that's what we have to be. We have to be rebellious of the system. We have to be rebels. And if a revolution needs to happen, well, I vamos, because there's no sense in being nice about it. We just have to keep pushing forward. Y los que, they don't like, hey, that's the way it goes. If they don't like it, they don't like it. But the way change is going to be made is if we make the change. The only way that change is going to be made is if we become leaders. The only way that change is going to be made is that we understand that we have to look, uh, courage in we have to be courageous, and not think that we can't do something. And because the one of the things, the statements, Arturo, since I'm on a roll here, is I hate that, oh, the sleeping giant, cuidado, because the sleeping giant's going to wake up one day. You know what? I ain't got time to be waking up. I got time to be, hurting Latinos and minorities and women to, make a difference. I don't know anything about sleeping giants or who the giant really is, right? All I know is that we have to, um, you know, make a move now. The position that I'm running is all about that, to show young Latinos that you can run for the second, position in the most powerful local union in the country, and you can, run for the second position in the Teamsters union and still survive, and you don't have to make excuses for who you are. And if folks in certain regions of this country don't appreciate, the way we look, well, hey, you know what, too bad. And it's time that, Latinos all over, because there's Latinos in Indiana, there's Latinos in Minnesota, there's Latinos in Michigan, and we all have to band together for one fight, and that's the fight of blood. And it's time to do that right now.
Ron, I couldn't think of a better way to end the interview. Like that's a powerful statement. Um, I think part of the thing I think that a lot of folks like myself get frustrated with is like the rehearsed like talking points,
Hmm.
and like we want to see what I think leadership is when someone just like talks from the heart, right? And can actually they can agree with you or disagree with you, but they're telling you in their mind, in their view, how it is, right? And
Hmm.
I think you've done that here today, and I appreciate it. Um, Let me ask you just one last question to finish up.
Hmm.
Um, it's if you're opening the door, you're gonna you're standing in the way, not letting the door close for the next generation of Latino leaders. Um, what is your hope that next generation does, right? Which is in some ways is an unfair question to you because you're already opening the door. It's up for that next generation to figure out what that is, right? But I'm just wondering if you have some thoughts as to like what you would like to see, what you would hope that that next generation that comes through that door, what you would hope that they would do.
That they stay directed by purpose, and never forget where they came from. uh, I call it the lunchroom philosophy. I've said, I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but that you've not lost where you came from when you can go into a lunchroom and eat with your members, and they accept you as one of them.
Hmm.
That's very important, Arturo. That leaders of the future, be humble, and that humility, drive them. And I think that when you're humble, it keeps you focused on your goals. And because I mean, granted, there's a lot of temptation out there. Employers are going to be, tempting you all the time, and you have to resist it, and know that workers, are the focal point of your life. It's interesting that you bring up, talking points, rehearsed talking points. I call it lucha libre to Adan, who's on the call, right?
Uh-huh.
Everything that's pre-planned, right? All the moves. And I tease Adan, right? And I tell him, mijo, this ain't lucha libre, right? It's about workers.